Hello wonderful people, welcome back to another wonderful tutorial. Today I'm going to teach you how I made this very beautiful off-shoulder top with ruffles at the neckline. You can see that it's so beautiful and it has fullness that makes it so puffy. So guys, if you're ready, let's just get started and get into the video. The first thing I did is that I folded the fabrics into 4. So this particular top I'm making is a top with fullness, so there will be no zipper at the back. So we are just going to cut both the front and the back on fold. So after doing that, I omitted 5 inches before placing the measurement of the top. So these 5 inches I omitted is because the top is an off shoulder. So after measuring the length of the top, the next thing I did is that I added 1.5 inches to the hem to turn the hem over. So for the neckline, I was supposed to use the normal 4 measurement for the width of the off-shoulder neckline, but I added 4 inches also because remember that the front has some sort of fullness, so an elastic is still going to run through, and with that is going to gather back the fullness back to shape. I measured my armhole measurement, taking off the same 5 from the shoulder to the chest. Remember we are working with an off-shoulder top. I was supposed to use 8, but I used 9 because I wanted easiness at the armhole too. I measured my bust measurement, which is about 8.5. So after doing that, I added 4 inches also for the fullness at the chest region. Then I just connected it back to the neckline. I'm just going to also connect the bust measurement back into the hem of the dress, just like the way it's appearing by the camera. Having done that, the next thing I'm going to do is to take the neck depth of the top, and I'm just going to use 6.5 inches, subtracting the 5 inches also for the off shoulder, and connect it in a circular shape back to the armhole. Then when I was done, the next thing I did, I just cut out the shoved measurement. So for the sleeve, I folded the fabrics into 4 and I used a measurement of 12 inches for the width, and I placed the measurement for the length of sleeve, which is about 17 inches. For the sleeve neck extension, I was supposed to use 4, but I also added 4 inches. Remember that it also has fullness. I went down to take the armhole measurement, and after doing that, I connected the armhole back into the sleeve neck extension, and after doing that, I connected it back to the hem of the sleeve and I just cut it out. Remember, it's already on fold, so both sleeves are being cut at the same time, and this is what we have. For the ruffles, I'll be using a length of 4 inches, so I just marked 4 inches, and I also folded the fabrics into 4. I used about 20 inches on fold, and after doing that, I just cut it out. To turn over the neckline, I'm going to cut out a facing, which is also going to serve as the rack for the elastic. So I just placed the main fabrics on a little piece of fabrics and I just cut it out just the way it is. And when I was done, I measured about 1.5 inches also for its length, and I just shaped it into the armhole and I cut it out. So for the facing, I'll be cutting out 2 pieces. I placed the first one on another piece of fabrics and I repeated the same cutting. Remember that the neckline for both the front and the back is the same, and that is the reason why I just used the first one to cut out the second one. So the last thing I'm going to be cutting is the shoulder neck extension rack, and this piece of fabrics is the one in which I'm going to go ahead to pleat in the excesses of the shoulder neck extension. So for that, I use 7.5 inches plus half inches allowance, which make it 8, and I measured 3 inches. Then by the time I fold it into 2, I'm going to have about 1.5 inches, and that is what we are going to use for the shoulder neck extension rack. So after doing that, the next thing I did is that I cut it out. I placed the first one on another piece of fabrics, and I just used the first one to cut out the second one for the other sleeve. And that is all we have for the cutting. So for the sewing, the first thing I did is that I taped in the hem of the ruffles, of the piece of fabrics I intended using for the ruffles. I just folded it in by 1 cm and I made a straight stitch on it till I get to the last end. Please guys, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, don't forget to do that. Please do that to make the channel grow, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. The next thing I'm going to do now is to pleat the piece of fabrics for the ruffles on the neckline of the front of the main fabrics. So I just did this by using my hand to create some kind of pleat, not too big and not too small. So I just used my hand to make the pleatings, and I just ensure that I stitched it down by about 1 cm, not more than that, because another fabric is still going to be stitched to it to turn it over to the other side, and that is the one we are going to use to pass in our elastic. So I just stitched down the ruffles. So please note that the way I place the fabrics of the ruffles on the main fabrics, I made the wrong side of the ruffles face the right side of the fabrics. So the right side and the right side of the main fabrics are both showing. I just hope you can see it better also in the camera. So what you can see me stitching down now is the facing that we cut, and I'm stitching it directly on the ruffles and the main fabrics. Like I said, we are going to use this facing to turn over all the seam, and after then you can see the way it's looking. Then after then I'm going to go ahead also to still stitch it down to the main fabrics. Please note, then I did that by ensuring that the ruffles is out, and I just used my hand to tape it in, a little taping in about 1 cm, and I made a direct stitch on the facing, attaching it directly to the main fabrics, and I hope you can see it very well also by the camera. So if you look at the video very well, you will notice that the ruffles are not very relaxed to the main bodies, and so I won't bother to, that is the reason why I did not bother to top stitch. After I was done, I just went ahead to pass in the elastic. I made a stitch on it to make it secured, and what I did after then is that I just made some kind of stitching on the ruffles to the main fabrics also, and I did not run the stitch all through. That is because I wanted the ruffles to kind of be zigzag, that is some down and some up, and that is the major reason why I did not top stitch right from the beginning. Having done that, I went ahead to place the facing for the back on the neckline, and I just stitched it down. And when I was done stitching it down, the next thing I did, I turned it over to the other side. I stitched down the hem to the main fabrics, and after I was done with that, I passed in a tiny elastic into it and I pulled it through. I stitched it down at the first side to secure it, pull it to the other side to make sure that it's fit enough, and I also stitched it down to the other side. So for the sleeve, I went ahead to fold the sleeve neckline rack. I folded it into 2, and when I was done, I placed a lunge in the center. That is because I want to use the lunge as a guide for me to know where to pleat my main fabrics to. I also folded the main fabrics into 2, so placed a lunge at the center. So that means that I have to pleat the excesses of the main fabrics into the rack for it, and with that I will be able to know where to pleat and where to stop. So I just went ahead to make a straight stitch on the rack. That is because I wanted to secure the 2 pieces together so that it won't shift when I want to pleat the actual fabrics on it. When I was done, I went ahead to place the fabrics on it. I started by stitching the fabrics just plain from the start, and when I was about getting to where I lunged, I started pleating it, and I ensured that the lunge met each other just as the way is appearing by the camera. So for the hem of the sleeve also, to fold it in, and I passed in the elastic, and I did the same thing for the second sleeve. Having done that, I made the right side of the sleeve face the right side of the main fabrics, and I just went ahead to stitch down the armhole into each other. Was done, I stitched down the first armhole into each other, yes, the one facing the front, and I also made the sleeve also go to the back, and I stitched down the armhole of the back as well. I did the same thing also for the other side, and having done that, next thing I did is that I joined the sleeve together and I ran a straight stitch starting from the hem of the sleeve, and I just ran it through all the way into the armhole and even into the side of the main bodice. Repeated the same thing for the other side. So for the hem, to fold the fabrics just like the way it's appearing by the camera, and I ran a straight stitch on it all the way round. So when it was about 1 inch or about 1.5 inches before closing up the stitching, I paused the sewing and I passed in an elastic through it. I passed in the elastic through it because I want the elastic to have just one joining. So I passed the elastic through it, and when I was done, I made the elastic to fit and I stitched the elastic together. I inserted it back into the hem and I closed up the 1.5 inches I left before. So you can see that the top is very simple and easy to make, so you should try it out. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, turn on all your notification bell so that you can get info once I post a new tutorial, which I am very sure that you will benefit from. So thank you so much guys for watching. I hope you loved the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and you gained something from it, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial.